And good morning, everyone. Today, I thought I would talk about my top five favorite solo artists. Okay, I already did a long time ago. I did a video on top five favorite bands and top five favorite guitarists, top five favorite drummers. I completely forgot about solo singers because there's a lot of good solo artists out there in rock and metal and all that I really do enjoy. And so we're going to do the top five, and we got some honorable mentions because there's some other artists that aren't in the top five, but I still really love. So, without further ado, starting with number 5, we are going with Eric Clapton, not only one of the greatest guitar players ever, but one of the great singer-songwriters there ever was. Whether he was in Cream or Blind Faith, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, Derek and the Dominoes, but specifically here his solo stuff. Man, what can you say about Eric Clapton? Tears in Heaven is one of the greatest ballads ever. It's a very sad song. If it doesn't make you feel, I don't know what does. Okay, but of course songs like After Midnight, Cocaine, Wonderful Tonight. Yeah. Number 4, one of the greatest, biggest stars in rock, freaking icon. It's sad to see him, with the health issues that he's been having. But man, this guy was great back in his heyday, especially when he fronted Black Sabbath. I'm talking about Ozzy Osbourne. What else? Oh man, some of his greatest albums were in the 80s. Diary of a Madman, Blizzard of Oz. There's another one I'm thinking of. Man, I can't even think of the name, but Sin After Sin, I think, is the name of the Alice Cooper album or Ozzy album. Jeez, getting my artists confused. No More Tears is good. Love Ozzy. Number 3, The Piano Man, Billy Joel. I grew up. My dad loved Billy Joel growing up, and it was playing a lot. And of course, when I was little, he was still out putting out the hits. But my dad had the album Glass Houses that came out in 1980. Great album. I think probably one of my favorites of his. But Innocent Man's also really good. So he was a big part of my childhood. And it's a shame that he doesn't really do as much anymore. I mean, he still tours and all that, and it's great. And I'd love to see him one day before he retires. And that could happen. You never know when, because, he's getting old. But, man, he could still play the piano really well. He could still sing great. Billy Joel's awesome. And then we come to one of the Beatles. My favorite of the Fab Four, Paul McCartney. Also something my dad would listen to when I was a kid. Of course, Paul McCartney was still releasing albums and stuff when I was a kid, but most of his best stuff was from before I was even born. Talking about, first album McCartney, which my dad had. He also had Ram, great album. I don't know if it gets enough love as it should. I think it's a great album. And of course, all his stuff with Wings. And then, of course, he went back to being solo again after that imploded because of the whole drug issue that, you got arrested for having pot in Japan, and that pretty much ended the band right there. But he continued on solo. But everything the dude does is it's magic. Even when he was in the Beatles, and the Beatles, of course, as you know, is one of my favorite bands. Actually, second favorite band. But too many songs to name that I love from Paul McCartney. But the solo artist that I love the most, and someone else that my dad got us into when I was a kid, and that is, and again, I mentioned him on the favorite bands, so I'm going to have to make a little correction on that. So my top 5 favorite bands, the band he was in is number 1, but he carried on that name as a solo artist, so now for this list, only his solo stuff, and we're talking about Alice Cooper. So anything from Welcome to My Nightmare on, and I have several of those albums. Man, and I've seen him 2 times, and I'm about to go see him for a 3rd time, and I cannot wait to go see him again. The last time wasn't as great, and it wasn't to no fault of his own. It was through no fault of his own. It was the weather that made it miserable last time. Hopefully this time it is much better, and this will be at the Sonic Temple Festival in May, which I go there every year with my sister. Only one day, because that's all we can really do. But yeah, my dad loves Alice Cooper and was always talking about it. He had his albums, especially his greatest hits album that he had that he used to listen to a lot. It's freaking great. And so honorable mentions, because there are some others that I like that aren't in the top 5, but definitely would be top 10, top 20. We're talking about people like David Bowie, Elton John, Bob Seger, Bruce Springsteen. Tom Petty, most of his stuff was with the Heartbreakers, so I guess he'd be in bands. But some of his solo stuff's pretty great too. Who am I missing here? Because there's a lot. a lot of other people. Oh, Michael Jackson. Elvis. Who doesn't love Elvis? I mean, come on. And of course, you got to also talk about the other 3 Beatles: George Harrison, John Lennon, Ringo Starr. If I was doing a ranking of the Beatles, obviously Paul McCartney would be number 1. But after him, it's a toss-up between John and George, and then whichever one it isn't for number 2 is number 3, and then number 4 is Ringo. Because Ringo stuff, I don't know, it's enjoyable, but not so much as Paul and George and John's were solo stuff. But hey, all the Beatles rule, so whatever. And I don't care what CM Punk says. Okay? Yeah, believe what the hell ever you want. I don't care. But anyway, I don't know if I left anyone out. There's just so many. There's even a bunch of women that are great too. I mean, Pat Benatar, Tina Turner. I mean, come on. But yeah, let me know what your favorites are in the comments below. And that'll be it for today. I'll see you all later.